Hello and welcome to another episode of Varsity360. I'm Columbian sports editor Micah Rice, joined by Tim Martinez, and we're kind of in an unusual situation compared to recent years. All our football teams are done, none having reached the state quarterfinals. I believe you looked it up, for the first time since 2007. So what happened?
Well, first off, we didn't get a lot of teams through to the first round. We just had the three Clark County teams plus Kelso. So, I think our predictions were that the local teams would go 1-3. But I kind of felt like, they could go 2-2 or 3-1. Didn't expect them to go 4-0 or 0-4, and that's what happened. I went up to Burien to watch Highline and Washougal play, and that was a good competitive back and forth game. Highline did a really nice job. Their defensive backs on Washougal's receivers, which really made it hard for Holden B to find open receivers. Washougal did a good job running the ball in the first half, but struggled in the second half. And just in the end, too many turnovers, and then I saw Skyview play on Saturday against Graham Kapowson, and I don't know if we go to a football game and they're warming up and you kind of look at the teams, you try to get an idea of how they size up physically, and if scales were the deciding factor, then I think Graham Kapowson already had a touchdown on the board.
Yeah,
they had the size, but. And that showed too, because the Graham Kapowson went out and scored on their first 4 drives. Skyview had a tough time stopping them, and then the offense kind of got going, but could never quite catch up. And so they were out, and you saw the center play.
Yeah, I was going to remark that I think a lot of the elements that you just mentioned are very similar to kind of what Le Center faced, in that, number one, you're in the state playoffs. It's going to be a quality opponent that you face. And I think in the case of Le Center, they faced a team in Kashmir that met them in their physicality, especially up front. And then you throw in a bit of the elements. It was very windy, cold, and wet in that game on Friday night. And it kind of took the passing out of the game, and so it just became a slog in the trenches. And like you said, happened to Skyview and Washougal. The team usually that makes the most mistakes ends up on the short end of a playoff game, and Le Center had a pick 6 for a touchdown. They fumbled inside their own 5, which led to another Kashmir touchdown, and it's just a real good reminder that while we've become used to our local teams down here making deep runs in the state playoffs, there's a very thin margin for error, and you have a bad couple of drives and it can end your season.
Yeah, we had a really good run from, I think it's 2016 to 2019, where we had at least one state champion for those years. So we had a lot of deep runs, and in addition, you had other teams making it to the semifinals, and so we're used to being very busy this time of year, so it's a little bit odd not to be busy coming into the third week in November, with football at least. But I think all 3 of those teams that we just talked about can look forward to next year.
Definitely.
Washougal is loaded with juniors. Skyview has a lot of juniors and some sophomores who make key contributions. And Le Center also has juniors and sophomores on its team that play big roles. So I think there are teams that can kind of take this experience, this playoff experience, kind of grow from it and motivate them and move them on to 2013.
I definitely agree with that.
23.
I definitely agree with that, and it had me reflecting. It wasn't that long ago when, at the time when we had Union, and Camas and Hawkinson all basically running off state titles one after another, and we started to do sort of these think pieces of why is it that Southwest Washington is so good in high school football, and we kind of came back to, there's some socioeconomic issues at play which allow some of these programs to, flourish, and then you have continuity in coaching staffs that have allowed, people like Steve Kaiser, Rory Rosenbach, John Eagle at the time, and Rick Steele at Hawkinson, who had really kind of established their programs. Well, what this year got me thinking about is, all those advantages aside, these things are still cyclical. There's other areas in the state, up north near Seattle, Spokane, even Tri-Cities. We aren't the only ones that enjoy those advantages that continually allow high school football teams to make deep runs in the state playoffs. So you're going to have years where just someone else is a little bit better, and we were up for a while. Now, we're kind of on the other end of the scales, but it will come back probably around again. Who knows how long?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that leaves us with volleyball and soccer. We'll talk to Will Denner about soccer later on in the show. But volleyball, some things never change, and that's Ridgefield and Columbia River having another epic battle for a district title match. These two teams and these two programs have just given volleyball fans so much to watch and to cheer for, really, since over the last 5 years they've been there. So.
Yeah, it's good. It's fun to watch, and you kind of know they're on the opposite end of the brackets at state. Mm-hmm. So if they're going to meet again, it'll probably be for some hardware at stake. So hopefully they'll both be alive and playing on. I guess it's Saturday. They play. Yes. Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. And I mean, you'll be heading over there to watch them play, and bring your parka when you're outside because it's going to be chilly in Yakima. So I think it's been a good run for volleyball too here locally and over the past couple of years. And you looked it up the last time River lost to somebody that wasn't Ridgefield.
Yeah, so I did some digging. I wanted to answer the question about when was the last time Columbia River or Ridgefield lost to a team not named Columbia River or Ridgefield. And Ridgefield, their cases, they lost their season opener to Camas, but Camas is a very good 4A program. So if you want to kind of throw that out, the last time Ridgefield lost to a 2A opponent not named Columbia River, you have to go all the way back to the 2017 state tournament when the Spudders lost to Linden in the semifinals. So that just kind of shows you the level of consistency they've been able to have out there at Ridgefield. Obviously 2 state titles during that time, and in 2018 and 2019, a trip to the state championship match last year where ultimately Columbia River prevailed. Columbia River, has always been kind of right there with Ridgefield. You look at River, you have to go. They lost to Woodland in a match in the 2020 season, which obviously was the COVID season. Mm-hmm. So it was only within the district that they played. But in a full season, including a state tournament, Columbia River's last loss to a team not named Ridgefield was the 2019 state tournament, a first round loss to White River, and then at that point Columbia River put together 3 straight victories and ended up with a trophy in that. So really, I wouldn't be surprised at all if River and Ridgefield end up on another collision course, which, as you mentioned, would be in the state title match. Number 2 seed Columbia River, number 4 seed Ridgefield on the opposite side of the bracket.
Right, and then the other tournaments we have Camas and in the 3A and Prairie and Kelso. Camas in the 4A, Prairie and Kelso in the 3A. 3A starts Thursday.
Yes.
Runs Thursday, Friday. Both these teams, they have to play their way into state through a very large by district, and so the teams that come out of the by district at 3A and 4A represent like a third to almost half of the field, depending on the classification. So they've already seen some of the tough teams, and so it's kind of a preview for state. For in some ways, they're going to see. And so a chance to kind of build off that and try to turn in some victories this weekend and come away and get some hardware.
Yeah, and Prairie and Camas both enter the state tournaments with very similar experience or very similar results in last weekend's by-district playoffs. Both made it to the semifinals with pretty good showings in the early rounds, but then lost their semifinal matches and then lost the third place match. So, like you said, those could be experiences that they really glean from, and opponents that they might see again at the Yakima Valley Sun Dome. But I think Camas has the talent to, if they put things together, can make another run to the trophy round, kind of like they did last year. Prairie, I think, is really trying to build something, and they haven't gotten to the trophy round in a few years at Prairie, but they have a tough matchup as a number 12 seed against number 5 Bellevue in the first round. But if they win that, then who knows? They definitely have the talent to put something together.
Yeah, no, it would put them into a position where they would play potentially the 4 seed, the way the bracket works, and so it's better than being in like a 8-9 seed match where you win and then you get the top seed coming out. So. Coming out of the bye district, I think the most thing to look at is who did they lose to, how do they play in the semifinals. The third place match, particularly now, in the way that the seeding's done, it's kind of I think it's kind of anticlimactic. There's nothing really at stake, and so I think after 2 busy days of volleyball, your team can just kind of come out flat in that match sometimes. So sometimes wins and losses in that doesn't really carry a whole lot of value going forward, but again, I think the experiences, the wins and the losses coming out of by district, I think is something that will help them, both teams, move forward this weekend in Yakima.
Yeah, and it's one of my favorite events to cover every year because it really is just all day, all encompassing. Since they moved the tournament to Yakima, they now start matches at 7 in the morning because they're cramming in 2A, 3A, and 4A during a 3-day window. Luckily, both Columbia River and Ridgefield, they'll be the first teams to start on Friday. They will tip off their matches at 8:45 a.m. So not some obscenely early wake up call for that, but I'll be heading over on Thursday, see what Prairie does in their first round match, and then catch up with the Falcons Thursday evening. So, and as always, be sure to follow. We'll be posting updates on Twitter and 360preps.com. Okay, I'm joined now by Will Denner, and we're going to talk about some state soccer. Busy weekend for our local soccer teams. 4 teams playing in the quarterfinals of the state soccer tournaments, all the way from classification 2A to 4A, but only one survived. You're going to be headed up to Shoreline this weekend for some Final Four soccer action with Columbia River, which they just have a knack of winning close games. What have you seen from Columbia River that allows them to, in the case of their first round win over Bellingham, triumph 1-0, and then get a 2-1 win against West Valley Spokane? What is it that allows them to, make sure that they're in every game and are able to triumph when more often than not?
Yeah, I think they just play really complementary to one another. They've had a season where a couple of players got injured, and then you have situations, of course, where players are playing out of their normal positions, like Ava Esslinger has been like one of their star center forwards. She has also played outside back. Ava Lipinskis has moved to center back. She normally played midfield. And just like a couple examples like that, I feel like of everybody kind of being willing to do what's best for the team. And I think that's been a key part of their success. And then really just the experience that they returned this year. I remember after covering them at the state Final Four last year, it seemed like of all those kind of top 2A Greater St. Helens League teams that they had the most coming back, just a lot of juniors and even some sophomores who had been around the program for a while, and now they're carrying some of the best experience I think they've had in recent years. So
I think that's the most impressive thing to me about the program that Philly Affinagis runs over there, not only with the girls but also the boys at Columbia River, is how they don't go through these valleys and peaks. It's like you just know that every year Columbia River soccer is going to be solid. They're going to compete for league titles. And frankly, they've had to be when you consider the other strong programs in the 2A Greater St. Helens League, and that Ridgefield does the same thing. They're there every year. Hawkinson, this was considered a quote-unquote down year for Hawkinson, and they still knock off the number 1 seed Fife and make it to the state quarterfinals last weekend. It's just this. I think I sent out a tweet that alluded to it being kind of a law of nature. And, this time of year, the leaves on the trees are going to change, and the 2A Greater St. Helens League girls soccer Big Three are going to make a run in the state playoffs. And that definitely happened again.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that for both Hawkinson and Ridgefield to get road wins in the first round. And, I think I also tweeted this out last week that I think there was maybe a little bit too much disrespect for how the seedings went, and even River getting a 6 seed despite two of their 3 losses were to other teams in the 2A in the District 4 for 2A, and then they also lost to 4A Union. But again, a really strong year for that league, and even RA Long, they handed River their only league loss this year. But the thing about River that's always impressed me, kind of going back to your previous point, is they seem to always respond really well to a loss. In the time that I've seen them, both in the regular season and even like last year when they lost to a really good Archbishop Murphy team up at the state Final Four, come back and finish third and beat Ridgefield in a penalty kick shootout. And it'll be interesting to see how that kind of lines up with this weekend and playing Tumwater, a team that they lost to in the district championship on I believe Tumwater scored in stoppage time to get the go-ahead goal there. So I'm going to be really curious to see how they respond to that, and I'm sure there will be no shortage of motivation for that one.
Well, no shortage of motivation, but also this is a chance where you can make adjustments because you've just seen this team in a high-pressure situation at a district championship match on Tumwater's home field.
Yep.
Now you're on a neutral site. You can hang with the other team. I mean, River can hang with anybody. I can't recall the last time they've had a lopsided loss, but you never. It's one of those things that Columbia River, you just expect them to be there every year and always have a puncher's chance. I wouldn't be surprised if they find a way past Tumwater and play for a state championship. Yeah,
for sure. I think Tumwater's a great program. They've had an unbelievable year. I think they're making their first ever appearance in the state Final Four at the 2A level, and they're undefeated to this point. But River, when they get there, I think they always have a chance. And even talking to them after the Bellingham game, I think they were pretty motivated to keep this season going as long as possible for their senior class and kind of make some more memories as Philly Affinagis kind of challenged them to do. And now they're here. They have 2 more games to play, and why not go after that state title? So.
Yeah, I mean, add another to it. I think they've won 3 state titles. I have to double check that, but I believe it's 4. 4, yeah. So get another one. Get another. Oh, right. They got 4 stars by their. So that's how you can tell that. So get a 5th star next to their name. And I think we'd also be a little remiss if we didn't just give a nod to Camas, which obviously Camas, another really strong year, defending 4A state champions, but 4A soccer is always so tough, and I can't recall a year that there hasn't been a program that dominated, going all the way back to kind of Matty Kemp's years at Camas. That was the last time I felt like you really had a clear-cut favorite in the 4A, and that was definitely the case this year with Issaquah, a team that Camas beat in the state championship match last year. It was a 1-0 game on Saturday, very evenly matched teams, and it just that's the nature of soccer. Just one moment can determine a match.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of dominance, I mean, Camas did have a pretty dominant year. They lost their season opener to Jesuit, didn't lose again until last Saturday. They had a 15-game win streak, and the past 7 had been by shutout. And I think in a playoff game like that, when the road team scores first, and it's a team that for Camas, not always, I would say, the most firepower on offense, but they do have a really good defensive side. So yeah, when Issaquah scored, I think it kind of took a little wind out of the sails. But for a team like Issaquah has a 7 seed to I mean, it's crazy.
That's just nuts.
But great year for Camas. They had a really good senior class. I thought their back line was really strong, and then of course their goalkeeper Keely Wazorek, who seemed like whenever they needed a save and a penalty kick or anything else, she was there to do it for them. So yeah, great year for them, and sometimes that just happens in playoff soccer. So.
Well, yeah, especially, you get one goal, it changes the entire strategy of the match. A good team like Issaquah, they can pack their defense back and make it really difficult to get any sort of breathing room on the attacking third.
Yeah.
And so that's one of those things that makes soccer great, is that one moment can really determine the match.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how River does up in Shoreline. At the Friday they play Tumwater, and then they'll see who they get either in the championship match or a third place match the following day. But be sure to follow Will on Twitter for updates, and also check out 360preps.com.